Today's vlog is going to be a little bit more like a monologue. We're going to talk about how to, and some tips about reducing your electricity usage. It should be fun. You might look at this and say, well, Sam, that's a nice countertop. What does that have to do with saving electricity? One thing that we're going to shoot for and try and just see what happens, and it'll be easier right now in the winter as opposed to the summer, we're going to try and build an old-fashioned icebox or refrigerator, whatever you want to call it, where you actually take blocks of ice and put it in there in your fridge, and we're gonna see what we can do. We've got the little freezer plugged in, so I'm going to take, right now it'll probably be milk jugs. I might find something that's a little more streamlined, like tall and skinny is what I'm kind of looking for. But we're going to use this countertop. I'm going to build it. It's going to look kind of like a chest, because I figure chest freezers are more economical than upright freezers. So I figured a chest fridge should be able to hold in the cold better than an upright fridge. So I'm going to build a chest fridge, and that's going to be my top for it. So we'll have a little more counter space. And then we'll put some doors on the sides. And I think what I'm going to do, where the opening where the sink was, is I'm going to put a door there on top. And we can refill the frozen jugs, whatever it is we use, through the top. We're just going to try it. We're not getting rid of our fridge yet. We want to see if we can keep stuff cold enough that way. It'll end up being kind of a daily chore, I think. Maybe every other day. Switching out the jugs. So it's gonna be work to do. But that's one way to save electricity, is to not have a fridge plugged up. We would only have a freezer, and it's a smaller chest freezer. And I think our fridge uses close to 1,000 watts a day. Maybe more, because it's a pretty big fridge. And the average household uses about 30,000 watts of energy a day. And this summer we experimented a little bit, and we got down to about 17,000, which is still a lot. So we're going to see how low we can go. We're going to try a few things like this. The only thing this is going to cost me, I've got enough lumber here, I think. It should only cost me maybe some hinges and then insulation. And I'm not sure, yeah, probably just some insulation. So we're going to give this a shot and see what happens. This will be a project over the next couple weeks, trying to put that together. One of the ultimate goals, eventually, would be to try and go off-grid and use solar power on the farm. It's something we've been tossing around a little bit and thinking about. And solar is still kind of expensive. And I figured if we still wanted to use what we're using today and buy enough solar power for that, it would be probably 10 years before we would break even. So it takes a long time, because it's still kind of expensive. It's a lot cheaper than it has been in the past, but it's still expensive. And a lot of times warranties and such like that only last 5 or 10 years for solar. But if you can get low enough in how much energy you need, you can break even with solar in 2 or 3 years. And if you break even with solar in 2 or 3 years, then after that you have free energy. So that's one reason we're trying to get low, see how low we can go, see what we feel like we need to live with and what we can live without. It'll be interesting. But I think there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot we can cut out and not feel like we're missing much. So I'll talk about that next. When you're talking about cutting your energy use, even if you're on electric, not even talking about solar yet, A lot of people like to immediately go to like the light bulbs you use and talk about that. But light bulbs are the little fish in the pond. The big fish in the pond is your AC and your heat and your stove. Those things that are hooked up to your electric use so much electricity. So I'm sitting here in front of my log pile that still doesn't have much progress done on it to talk about the fact that we're going to try and get a wood stove soon. And even if we get a wood stove, we want to get a wood cook stove so that we can try and cook on it too and see if that's something that we feel is feasible, something that we can learn. Where'd you go? There you are. He's following me around everywhere, I tell you. He's a friendly kitty. Yeah. But see if cooking on a wood stove is something that we think we can do. A lot of wood stoves also have a hot water tank on them, attached to them. So you'd see if we could use that instead of a hot water heater. And then also using the wood stove to heat with. It hasn't gotten too cold here yet, but I think we could do it. At least some of that. I don't know about all of it. We're not sure about the cooking part or using it as using it for hot water. But that's a big way. I mean, think of it. If you got rid of your furnace, you got rid of your hot water heater, and you got rid of your stove, and all you used was wood. I'm probably gonna have to buy wood this year because I haven't seasoned enough, and it's not seasoned long enough to be able to use. But if I prepare and I use the acreage I have, or even if you just go on Craigslist, there's so many people that post and they just need a tree down in their backyard. Some of them even live in the country, so it's not going to hit anything. And they'll let you take it for free. So all it costs you is probably a little bit in gas and then labor. And then you're able to get rid of your hot water heater, your stove, and then maybe your furnace. We aren't experts in any of these things. It's a lot of hard work to try and get rid of those things and use a wood cook stove like that. But it's something we want to try. I used to be, when I was younger, and I still am, I hate trying new things. Mostly because I think I will fail miserably. But as I've gotten older, and as I've lived longer with my wife Laura, I think it's fun now to try some of those things so that you know whether or not you can do it. And just to say that you've done it, you've tried it, and hey, this is the part that works really well, it was a lot of fun, and this is the part that was terrible, it was a lot of work, and it was not worth it. So that's something we're going to try. Some of those bigger fish, like your stove and your furnace, use up a lot of electricity. When it comes to light bulbs and things like that, we can talk about that later. They don't matter as much when it comes to your overall picture.
Hi, BB. Are you happy? Huh? Are you having a good day? Huh? You're so pretty. Yes, you are. I love your hair. Oh, it's so fantastic. Do you do it yourself? Huh?
This is another big energy use, is the dryer. This baby will flat out use some electricity. So we've gotten to the point where we're not using this hardly at all. We're trying to use some other older methods to dry out our clothes. Here is our saggy outdoor clothesline that I need to tighten. But this is what Laura uses outside when the sun's out, and it's actually drying stuff a little bit. Laura's purchased this indoor drying rack that we've been using, which works well when you don't have as many daylight hours here in the winter. And this helps cut out having to use that dryer. So we use this indoor rack, and then we use our outdoor rack when we can, or the outdoor clothesline when we can. But since it's Since we don't have as much light now, we've been using this as well to kind of help with that. So we don't have to use our dryer nearly as much. Just very rarely do we have to use that. There's a few other places you can look at that have things you might not think about that use a lot of energy too. Hair dryers use a lot of energy. Toasters. If you love toast and you're toasting stuff, you know, toasting a half a loaf of bread a meal, that'll use a lot of energy. Space heaters that you plug in use a lot of energy. We have a little one. Well, I mean, it's a decent sized space heater. We've had it for a couple years now, but we just looked today. We were wondering, we thought, you know, we know that uses a lot of energy. And we've noticed the last couple of days that it's been cold. We've used it a little bit for the girls' room, kind of take the chill out. And it uses 1,500 watts an hour. And that's a lot of electricity. If you're thinking that each household in the U.S. averages about 30,000 kilowatts a day, 1,500 watts an hour is a lot. If you're wondering how much some of your appliances and such use, how much electricity they use, you can go online and there's a lot of graphs and charts that'll kind of give you the average of what a lot of things use, their electricity usage. And that's kind of where I've got some of my numbers. Some of them I've actually looked on the appliance. If you look hard enough, or if you can find a model number and do a little bit of a Google search, you can figure out how much they use. But that's another step that we're thinking about, is maybe going off-grid and going solar. That's a little ways off in the distance, but we're trying to challenge ourselves now a little bit at a time, seeing what we can kind of take away and what we can do without. We're not just going to jump off grid all of a sudden and just kind of do it cold turkey. I've read up a little bit about that, and it can be a big challenge to just jump in with both feet. But I do admire the people that can do it. So we're just going to kind of pick stuff off a little bit at a time and experiment and see how we can handle it, see if we can cope. But it's kind of fun to challenge yourself that way and see what you can do. And I don't know, I think it's a lot of fun to experiment in that way. So that's our vlog, or our monologue for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.